learn counter-attack techniques that involve the concealed blade. Now the ninja's concealed blade is very small. This is an example of a concealed blade. You notice that not only is it very small, but that it is dulled. It is darkened. You can either paint your blade black or you can paint it the color of your skin. When you paint it black or the color of your skin, the blade is not visible. When it is not visible, it is a surprise to an opponent in combat. Now, when you are fighting an opponent, if you simply draw a 6-inch dagger, you escalate the fight. What happens is that the opponent knows that you have a dagger and will also draw a dagger. But if the opponent thinks that you are fighting bare hand, and if you can then use that concealed blade to deal the opponent a decisive blow that forces the opponent to retreat, then your concealed blade is a lethal advantage. There is one more thing that you need to know, and that is that the ninja in combat always seeks with the concealed blade to cause bleeding injuries. This means that you must not cut your opponent. That is not damage. You must cut a blood vessel. The concealed blade is too small to reach into the body and seriously damage an organ. What the concealed blade can do is cut nerves, cut blood vessels, and cut tendons. Nerves are the instruments by which messages are taken from the brain to the body. Cut a nerve. Now, for example, there is a nerve over here. If I cut this nerve, the hand stops working. Blood vessels, of course, carry blood. If I cut this blood vessel, I start bleeding to death. Tendons connect the muscles to the bones. As the muscle contracts, the tendon pulls on the bone and the hand moves upwards. Cut a tendon and that limb does not function. Of the three in combat with the concealed blade, blood vessels are best, because blood vessels cause a bleeding injury, and a bleeding injury means unconsciousness or death in a very small period of time. Always with the concealed blade, go for the bleeding injury. The most lethal of all possible opponents is, of course, the opponent who is highly trained in some combat art and who regularly engages in randori, in fighting. Now, an excellent example of this is the boxer. Now, the boxer regularly meets opponents of different calibers in the ring. He fights them, he takes blows, he learns how to evade blows, he learns how to deal damage, to avoid damage. This is an excellent example of a trained fighter. But a boxer has got limitations. I have fought many boxers not in the ring, but in real life combat. And I have found them to be seriously limited against an attacker who is good at kicks. The other sort of combatant, more powerful, is the kickboxer. Now, the kickboxer has got both hand strikes and kicking ability, and the kickboxer also meets opponents in the ring. The kickboxer is quite lethal, but the kickboxer himself can be taken by an opponent who is a master of grappling and locking of limbs, and also of koppo, that is of breaking of bones, which is also known as omero. Finally, there is the grappling specialist. The grappling specialist, if you can manage to keep your limbs out of his reach, and if you learn a particular ninja technique for quickly releasing the arm from the initial grasp of the grappling specialist, you can keep the grappling specialist at a distance almost indefinitely while beating the life out of him. So we have discussed three different kinds of fighters. Now, the most deadly fighter is the fighter who has mastered several different arts, like, for example, a combination kickboxer and jujutsu specialist. Now, this fighter is difficult to handle. For this fighter, you need to cheat. Now, the ideal method that ninjas the ninja used to cheat is the organic nerve poison. What we do is, we put a nerve poison, deliver nerve poison into the opponent using perhaps a poison needle or an aerosol. When the nerve poison is within the opponent's body, the opponent's movements are either slowed or stopped altogether, or the opponent is unconscious. An unconscious opponent is defeated. This is the ninja method. When faced with a fighter who is better than yourself, poison him. However, that is for an advanced level. At this level, we will discuss what you can do against a trained fighter with a concealed blade. Now it is important to recognize a trained attacker. A trained attacker will tend to cover up. He will tend to try to protect his head. He will bring his shoulders up to protect the side of the jaw. We are talking about now, for in this particular sequence, we will be countering. These are Hangeki techniques. Hangeki techniques are counters. We will be countering hand strikes. There will be other training in countering a kicking attacker, but this is a hand striking attacker. So a hand striking attacker will roll his shoulders up to protect the side of the face. He will then bring the hands up to protect the temple. He will come forward in a crouch and will use jabs to try to get you to reveal your fighting style. Now this is how you recognize that he is a trained attacker. When he comes in like this, you know that you have to disable him quickly. Now in training, use something harmless. Don't use a live blade. Instead, use some piece of foam or some piece of rubber, roughly shaped like a knife. Now this is not as small as a concealed blade. A concealed blade is very small. This thing is much larger, but it does in training. The attacker comes in. Now what you have to do is, the first technique is, you have to cause blood loss. The easiest way to cause blood loss is to cut the wrist of the attacking limb. The wrist contains blood vessels, the elbow contains blood vessels, and here, just under the bicep, is the main blood vessel that provides blood to the arm. Cut any of these and he is bleeding to death and will experience unconsciousness within 2 minutes. If he is cut, he has to think about the fact that he is bleeding. He can't think about you. Now, you cannot attack, you cannot counter a jab when it is fully extended. As an example, fast. See, it's fast. It is difficult for me to counter it. So what you have to do is, before he attacks, cut. Or after he attacks, cut. Fast, fast. Another alternative is, grab the hand and cut. These are methods that you can use. There is one more thing I must tell you about. Have you seen how a cobra strikes? It will strike and then it will walk up the hand, bearing its fangs, injecting poison with each bite. You must slash the same way. When the opponent comes in, don't make one slash. Cut, 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 cut. Leave him with several bleeding wounds. This is how one uses the concealed blade to counter a fist attacker. Now we are going to demonstrate a counter to a boxer's jabs with a concealable blade. Watch carefully. Again. As you can see, the way he evaded and blocked my blow and used his concealable knife not only to cut my wrist but also my neck. Again,